The gilded cage of our life, once a symbol of shared success, had become a silent, echoing prison. Olivia often found herself staring out of the floor-to-ceiling windows of their minimalist penthouse, not at the glittering cityscape, but at the reflection of a woman she barely recognized. What happens when the passionate fire of a marriage dwindles to cold, indifferent embers? And what path do you tread when the hand that once fit so perfectly in yours now feels like that of a stranger? If you've ever felt the sting of loneliness within a relationship, or faced a temptation that promised escape, even at a devastating cost, then Olivia's journey will resonate deep within you. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell, because we are about to unravel a story of desire, deceit, and the irrevocable consequences of choices whispered in the dark. Daniel. He had entered Olivia's life as Marcus's oldest, most steadfast friend, a bond forged in the boisterous arenas of university sports and solidified through years of shared milestones and unspoken understandings. Marcus, her husband, was a man of intense ambition, a titan in the world of finance, his life a meticulously charted course towards ever greater success. Daniel, in contrast, possessed an easygoing charm, a quick, self-deprecating wit, and an almost uncanny ability to make everyone around him feel instantly at ease. He was a frequent fixture in their lives, a regular at their dinner parties, a confidant to Marcus, and, over time, a comfortable, familiar presence to Olivia. For years, Olivia had viewed Daniel through the prism of that friendship. He was Marcus's ally, an extension of her husband's world. Safe, platonic, uncomplicated. But the relentless pace of Marcus's career, his increasing emotional unavailability, had begun to carve a chasm in their marriage. His physical presence, when he wasn't on one of his frequent international business trips, was often just that, physical. His mind remained tethered to stock prices, market analyses, and the intricate dance of corporate politics. Their conversations, once lively and filled with shared laughter, had dwindled to perfunctory exchanges of information, devoid of genuine connection. A chilling realization had begun to dawn on Olivia. She was profoundly, achingly lonely, adrift in the opulent emptiness of their shared life. The foundation of their once solid marriage was cracking, subtle fissures spiderwebbing across its polished surface. Have you ever found yourself in a relationship where the silence speaks louder and more painfully than any angry words ever could? These unsettling thoughts, these tremors of profound dissatisfaction, often surfaced with a vengeance during the very social events designed to showcase their enviable life. Olivia vividly recalled one such evening, a lavish charity gala held in a grand ballroom. She stood on the periphery, a glass of untouched champagne in her hand, watching Marcus navigate the room with his characteristic blend of confidence and charm, effortlessly networking, completely oblivious to her growing sense of isolation. The air thrummed with forced conviviality, with the clinking of glasses and the murmur of superficial conversations. It was in that moment of acute loneliness, a feeling of being utterly invisible in a room full of people, that Daniel had found her. "Hiding from the madding crowd, Olivia?" he'd murmured, his voice a warm, welcome intrusion. She'd turned, a startled but grateful smile touching her lips. He had that rare gift of making her feel seen, truly seen, in a way that Marcus no longer did. "Something like that," she'd confessed, the words barely a whisper. "Sometimes these events feel more like a performance than a party." Daniel had chuckled, a low, conspiratorial sound. Marcus does tend to thrive in his natural habitat, the corporate jungle. There was no malice in his tone, only a gentle, knowing observation. "But you look like you could use a lifeline, or at least a genuine conversation." That night, something had shifted,
almost imperceptibly. Daniel hadn't just offered polite conversation. He had offered understanding, a subtle acknowledgement of the unspoken tensions in her marriage, of the emotional void Marcus had left. He hadn't pried, hadn't judged, but his quiet empathy had been a balm to Olivia's frayed nerves. He'd looked at her not just as Marcus's wife, but as Olivia, a woman with her own thoughts, her own feelings, her own burgeoning unhappiness. And in his eyes, she had seen a flicker of something more than just friendly concern, something that both intrigued and unsettled her. From that night on, Daniel's presence in her life began to take on a new, more significant dimension. He became the person she found herself confiding in, initially about trivial matters, then, gradually, about the deeper, more painful fissures in her marriage. He listened patiently, offered quiet support, never once overstepping the boundaries of their friendship, yet somehow managing to convey a depth of understanding that Marcus seemed incapable of. The contrast between the two men became increasingly stark. Marcus, her husband, the man who had promised to be her partner in all things, was an increasingly distant, preoccupied figure. Daniel, his best friend, was becoming her confidant, her emotional anchor. The loneliness in Olivia's marriage became a dull, constant ache. Marcus's absences grew more frequent, his brief returns home feeling more like fleeting visits than a genuine re-engagement with their shared life. One evening, after another week of solitary dinners and empty silences, Olivia found herself scrolling aimlessly through her contacts, her finger hovering over Daniel's name. She hesitated, a battle raging within her. It was late. Marcus was on another continent. What could she possibly say? But the need for connection, for a friendly voice in the echoing emptiness of her apartment, was overwhelming. She pressed call. "Olivia, is everything all right?" Daniel's voice, warm and concerned, answered on the third ring. "Yes, no, I don't know," she'd stammered, suddenly feeling foolish, vulnerable. "Marcus is away as usual. The apartment just feels so empty tonight." "I get it," he'd said softly. "Want some company?" "We could grab a quiet drink somewhere, or I could just bring over some truly terrible takeout and we can complain about our respective days." His offer, so casual, so unassuming, felt like a lifeline. She had agreed, and a short while later, Daniel was at her door, a bag of surprisingly decent Thai food in hand, and his usual easy smile on his face. They talked for hours that night, about everything and nothing. Olivia found herself laughing, genuinely laughing, for the first time in what felt like an eternity. Daniel listened, truly listened, his gaze attentive, his responses thoughtful. There was no judgment, no pressure, just easy companionship. But as the evening wore on, as the wine flowed and their conversation deepened, Olivia became aware of a subtle shift in the atmosphere, an undercurrent of something unspoken, something more potent than mere friendship, beginning to thrum between them. His eyes would linger on hers a fraction of a second too long. His smile would hold a hint of something she couldn't quite decipher, something that made her heart beat a little faster. She tried to ignore it, to dismiss it as a figment of her lonely imagination. This was Daniel, Marcus's best friend. It was unthinkable, unacceptable. But the seed of a dangerous idea, once planted, had begun to take root. The evenings they spent together, initially sporadic and always under the guise of platonic friendship, became more frequent. Marcus remained largely oblivious, too consumed by his own world to notice the subtle changes in his wife, the new light in her eyes when Daniel was around, the way she seemed to come alive in his presence. Olivia knew she was playing with fire, treading a perilous path. But the warmth of Daniel's attention, the intellectual stimulation of their conversations, the sheer relief of feeling seen and understood, was an intoxicating, addictive elixir. One rainy Tuesday, Marcus called to say his trip was extended by another week. The familiar wave of disappointment washed over Olivia.
quickly followed by a less familiar, more unsettling emotion, a flicker of guilty relief. She found herself thinking of Daniel, wondering what he was doing. Before she could second-guess herself, she sent him a text. "Marcus delayed. Another week of thrilling solitude. Up for a movie and pity pizza?" His reply was instantaneous. "Your place or mine?" "And I'm buying to compensate for the thrilling solitude." That evening, as they sat on her plush sofa, a half-eaten pizza cooling on the coffee table, the movie long forgotten, the conversation veered into more personal, more dangerous territory. Daniel spoke of his own past relationships, his own struggles with loneliness, his own yearning for a deeper connection. Olivia, emboldened by his vulnerability, found herself sharing her own frustrations, her own disillusionment with her marriage, the words tumbling out in a torrent of suppressed emotions. "It's like he doesn't even see me anymore," she confessed, her voice thick with unshed tears. "I feel like a ghost in my own life, Daniel." He reached out then, his hand covering hers where it lay on the sofa between them. His touch was gentle, reassuring, yet it sent an electric current through her. "I see you, Olivia," he said softly, his gaze intense, unwavering. "I always have." The air in the room crackled with unspoken tension. Olivia's heart hammered against her ribs. She knew with a terrifying certainty that they were standing on a precipice. One wrong move, one careless word, and they would both tumble into the abyss. She should pull her hand away, she knew. She should laugh it off, steer the conversation back to safer waters. But she didn't. She couldn't. His thumb began to stroke the back of her hand, a slow, deliberate, mesmerizing rhythm. He leaned closer, his eyes searching hers, and Olivia felt herself leaning in too, as if drawn by an invisible, irresistible force. Their lips met, tentatively at first, then with a growing urgency, a desperate hunger that spoke of weeks, months, of unspoken longing, of suppressed desire. It was a kiss that shattered worlds, a kiss that changed everything. When they finally broke apart, breathless and shaken, the reality of what they had done crashed down on Olivia with the force of a physical blow. Guilt, sharp and immediate, warred with a dizzying, illicit exhilaration. "Daniel, we can't," she whispered, her voice trembling. This is wrong, Marcus." "I know, Olivia, I know," he murmured, his forehead resting against hers, his own breathing ragged. "But tell me you don't feel this. Tell me this isn't real." She couldn't, because it was real. Terrifyingly, devastatingly real. The affair began, as these things often do, in stolen moments, in whispered conversations, in clandestine meetings fueled by a potent cocktail of desire and deceit. Olivia found herself living a double life, a nerve-wracking, exhausting existence, torn between her loyalty to Marcus, however frayed, and her undeniable burgeoning feelings for Daniel. The guilt was a constant companion, a gnawing presence in the pit of her stomach, but the thrill of the forbidden, the intoxicating illusion of being truly alive, truly desired, was a powerful, addictive drug. What do you think drives someone to cross such a definitive line? Is it purely dissatisfaction or something more complex? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story is holding your attention, please give it a like and consider sharing. The stolen moments with Daniel became Olivia's lifeline, her escape from the suffocating emptiness of her marriage. They met in discreet hotel rooms on the city's outskirts, in quiet, out-of-the-way cafes, their encounters imbued with a thrilling, illicit secrecy. Olivia felt alive in a way she hadn't in years. Her senses heightened, her emotions raw and intense. Daniel was attentive, passionate, everything that Marcus was not. He listened to her, laughed with her, made her feel cherished, desired. But the guilt was a corrosive acid, eating away at her conscience. Every time she looked at Marcus, every time he spoke to her with his characteristic oblivious kindness, she felt like a fraud, a hypocrite.
The lies piled up, one on top of the other, creating a fragile, precarious edifice that she knew could come crashing down at any moment. The strain of her double life began to take its toll. Olivia became jumpy, irritable, her sleep plagued by nightmares.
She found herself scrutinizing Marcus's every word, every glance, terrified that he suspected something. He, in turn, seemed to retreat even further into his own world, his obliviousness a strange mixture of blessing and curse. Sometimes, Olivia would find herself yearning for him to confront her, to force the issue, to put an end to the unbearable tension. But he never did. One sun-drenched Saturday afternoon, Olivia and Daniel had arranged to meet at a secluded botanical garden, a place they mistakenly believed offered anonymity amidst its lush foliage. They walked hand in hand along a winding path, lost in their own private world, the stolen intimacy, a fragile bubble against the backdrop of their deception. As Daniel leaned in to kiss her, a tender, lingering kiss, Olivia felt a momentary sense of peace, a fleeting illusion of normalcy. And then, a voice, cold and sharp as shattered glass, sliced through the idyllic afternoon. "Olivia?" She froze, her blood turning to ice. That voice, it was Marcus. She whirled around, her heart plummeting, and there he stood, not 10 feet away, his face a mask of stunned disbelief, then dawning, agonizing comprehension. The bouquet of flowers he had been holding, presumably for her, slipped from his numb fingers, scattering a vibrant splash of color on the path between them. Time seemed to stop. The cheerful chirping of birds, the distant laughter of children, all faded into a deafening, roaring silence. Marcus's eyes, those familiar blue eyes that had once looked at her with such love, now stared at her with a mixture of pain, betrayal, and a raw, unadulterated fury that made her tremble. Daniel, to his credit, didn't flinch, didn't try to hide. He simply stood beside Olivia, his hand still protectively on her arm, his expression a mixture of guilt and grim resignation. "Marcus, I can explain," Olivia stammered, the words sounding hollow, pathetic, even to her own ears. "Explain?" Marcus's voice was a low, dangerous growl. "Explain what, Olivia?" "Explain how my wife, the woman I trusted, the woman I loved, is here, in a public park, kissing my best friend. What possible explanation could there be for that?" He took a step closer, his gaze like a laser fixed on Daniel. "And you," he spat, his voice laced with a venom Olivia had never heard before. "My friend, my brother, how could you?" The ensuing confrontation was a blur of angry accusations, of choked denials, of raw, unfiltered emotion. Olivia felt as if she were watching herself from a great distance, a spectator at the catastrophic implosion of her own life. She saw the pain in Marcus's eyes, the deep, visceral wound of her betrayal, and it was like a knife twisting in her own gut. There were no excuses, no justifications, only the stark, ugly truth of her actions. The carefully constructed facade of her life had been shattered, and the pieces, she knew, could never be put back together. The divorce was swift and brutal. Marcus, a man of decisive action in all aspects of his life, wanted nothing more to do with her. He moved out of their penthouse within days, leaving Olivia alone amidst the opulent wreckage of their shared past. The silence in the apartment was deafening, broken only by her own choked sobs. Daniel, too, became a casualty of the fallout. The thrill of their illicit affair, the intoxicating danger, had evaporated in the harsh light of discovery, replaced by a heavy, suffocating blanket of guilt and recrimination. Their stolen moments, once so precious, now felt tainted, soared none. Olivia tried to pick up the pieces of her shattered life, but it felt like an impossible task. She had lost her husband, her home, her social standing. Friends who had once flocked to their lavish parties now offered only awkward condolences, or worse, judgmental silence. She found herself isolated, adrift in a sea of regret. The relationship with Daniel, born of shared loneliness and illicit desire, could not withstand the weight of their mutual transgression. The passion that had burned so brightly now flickered and died, leaving behind only the cold ashes of what might have been. They saw each other a few more times, their encounters strained, awkward, overshadowed by the ghosts of their betrayal.
Eventually, they too drifted apart, the unspoken understanding between them that what they had shared, however intense, was ultimately unsustainable, built on a foundation of lies and deceit. Olivia was left alone, truly alone, for the first time in her adult life. The silence of her new, much smaller apartment was a constant reminder of all that she had lost. There were days when the weight of her regret was almost unbearable, when she replayed the events of the past year in her mind, searching for the exact moment when she had veered so catastrophically off course. Was it that first innocent conversation with Daniel at the gala? That first shared pizza in her lonely apartment?
That first fateful kiss? Or had the seeds of her discontent been sown long before, in the slow, insidious erosion of her marriage to Marcus? She didn't have the answers. Perhaps there were no easy answers. She had made choices, reckless, selfish choices, and now she had to live with the consequences. The path ahead was uncertain, daunting. But as Olivia sat by her window, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance, a tiny, fragile seed of hope began to take root in the barren landscape of her heart. She had lost so much, but she was still here. She was a survivor.
And maybe, just maybe, there was a chance to rebuild, to create a new life, a different life, from the ashes of the old. It would not be easy. It would require courage, resilience, and a brutal honesty with herself that she had long avoided. But for the first time in a very long time, Olivia felt a flicker, not of illicit excitement, but of a quiet, determined strength. The journey would be long and the scars would remain, but perhaps, in time, she could find her way back, not to what was, but to what could still be. This story of Olivia, Marcus, and Daniel is a stark reminder of how easily lives can unravel, how choices made in moments of weakness or desire can have far-reaching and devastating consequences. What lessons do you draw from Olivia's experience? Can true healing and forgiveness follow such profound betrayal? We encourage you to share your perspectives in the comments below. Your insights contribute to a richer understanding for everyone in our community. If this narrative resonated with you, please show your support by liking the video and sharing it with others who appreciate stories that delve into the complexities of human relationships. And of course, ensure you are subscribed and have the notification bell activated so you don't miss our future explorations into the intricate tapestry of life and love.